Welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for joining this Abolition 101 training brought to you by the Advancement Project for the benefits of Michigan Liberation, uh, one of our uh, very much appreciated local partners in Michigan. My name is Kristen Buford, but you can please call me Chris. And I use he/him pronouns, and I'm a campaign strategist with the Advancement Project. And today, like I said, we'll be talking about abolition and some of the kind of the foundational pieces of the abolitionist framework. But before we get too deep into things, just want to give a brief, overview of the Advancement Project, and particularly talking about the Justice Project team and what we are up to on that team. The Advancement Project is a civil rights organization that's been around for about 20 years and started their work primarily doing voter election justice work. And over the years, and through the work time that we've been doing our work has expanded to include work around access to our Opportunity to Learn program. Of course, we still have our electoral justice program, and then we also have our Justice Project team, which is the team that I represent. And so, going to share my screen and talk a little bit more about the Justice Project and what we are up to, what we hope to accomplish on the Justice Project team. So the Justice Project team at the Advancement Project, we are committed to supporting grassroots movements and communities of color that challenge racial criminalization, dismantle structures of white supremacy, and attack through an abolitionist lens all aspects of the criminal punishment system. And so, yeah, that is just a brief summary of what the Justice Project team does and what the Advancement Project does. And we're going to talk more about what that means for us to operate through an abolitionist lens throughout the duration of this training. And just want to stop there quickly to see if folks have any questions initially about the Advancement Project or the Justice Project team before we get too deep in the weeds of this training. And we also have other folks from the Justice Project team here in attendance. Our esteemed director of our program, Leah, is also here with us today. And I believe that is the only other person we have from the Justice Project team with us. But yeah, they're also here, will be participating, I believe. And so, yeah, also a part of the AP team. But does anybody have any questions about the Justice Project team or the Advancement Project that I could try to answer?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Chris. Thanks for doing this.
Yep, no problem. Okay. And then also, just want to give a big shout out to the Michigan Liberation Team, Neil, Ray, Nick, all of the great folks that you all have over there at Michigan Liberation for giving us the opportunity to bring this content to you all, to be a part of the work that you all are doing. It is an honor and a pleasure to work alongside you all, and to be here this evening with you all. So want to give y'all shouts out too as well. Word. So we're going to keep moving, going into the content. So today, in this training, we're going to talk about, a few things. One, first and foremost, we're going to talk about abolition and try to put a definition to what abolition means. It's a term that gets thrown out a lot. It's used a lot in popular media, on the news, everywhere you look, you're hearing about abolition in some way, shape, or form. And so we want to put a definition to that. We want to talk about the differences between reformist and non-reformist reforms, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means when we get to that point. And then we want to talk about the value of freedom dreaming, about about the world that we actually want to see and be a part of. And that'll be our agenda. We're going to be here together for about 2 hours, hoping to wrap up promptly at 8 p.m. And if everything goes well, maybe wrap up a little bit early. But the goal is that we will conclude our time together this evening by 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Any questions there before I go on? Cool, cool, cool. So before I do proceed, just want to do a couple of housekeeping things. Encourage folks to stay on mute as much as possible. Um, Also encourage folks to ask any questions that you might have. There's no such thing as a dumb question or a bad question or a wrong question. Encourage folks to ask questions, and as much as I can, I'll try to answer those questions with the knowledge that I have. And if I can't answer a question for you, I'll be sure to try to find that information and get it to you. Um, Also, we'll do some introductions here shortly and give folks an opportunity to share their name. But if your name on your screen does not reflect the name that you wish to be addressed by, please take the opportunity to change your name. And you can do that by clicking on the participant link, finding your name, and when that more bubble pops up, you can click on that bubble and scroll down to rename yourself, and you can rename yourself to the name that you would like to be addressed as. And if you feel so inclined, you can also add your name and your pronouns there as well. Um, Another place that folks can drop questions, comments, and things like that is in the chat. Encourage folks to use the chat Encourage folks to use the chat to your heart's content. Put anything in there, questions, comments, affirmations, jokes, whatever you want to do. The chat is the place for you all to do that. And so, yeah, encourage folks to use those spaces. And if I'm moving too quickly, or if you want me to go back to something, you can also drop that in the chat. And so, yeah, just want to lay those things out there for folks, and before we get deeper into the content. We're going to stop again, just see if there's any questions, comments that folks have before we move forward. All right, sounds good. So we're gonna keep going. And so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna break out into some breakout groups. I'm sure you all know each other, but want to give folks the opportunity that might not know each other to break out into these in breakout groups. And in your small groups, I want folks to share their name, share their pronouns, and I want folks to answer this question: what is abolition? Again, there is no right or wrong answer to this question because it's based on your perspective and your understanding. And so your perspective and your understanding cannot be wrong. And so we just want folks to talk about that for a minute. What is abolition? What does it mean to you? What comes up for you when you hear the words abolition? And then we'll come back to the larger group and we'll do a quick report back and talk about some of the conversations that you all had. And then we'll share a definition of what abolition is, that we can all use as a working definition. Are there any questions about that before I break folks out in the breakout rooms? All right, sounds good. Seeing no questions. So breakout rooms are going to be about 10 minutes. There should be about 3 or 4 people in each breakout room. Folks will have about 10 minutes. So right now it is 6:15. We will come back at about 6:25. And if you all are done, if your group is fast, quick, gets that done quickly, you can come back to the big room a little bit earlier. But yeah, so that sounds good. If there's no questions, I'm going to open up breakout rooms. And if you're having any trouble getting into breakout rooms, let me know, and I'll do my best to try to assist you into getting you in. So all breakout rooms should be open. You should get a notification on your screen letting you know that you can join a breakout room. And then once you join that breakout room, it'll take you there. If you don't get that notification, let me know, and I can try to move you to your breakout rooms manually. welcome back, everyone. We're gonna give it a couple more seconds. I believe it was like 30 seconds before all the breakout rooms closed. And then once everyone's back, we'll do some quick report backs about what folks talked about, and then we'll get back into the content.
Being recorded.
Welcome back, everyone. I think we are back at Critical Mass. We got everybody back in the rooms. So super excited to hear from folks about what came out of those conversations, about what you all think abolition means, what abolition means to you, what is abolition, and the answers to those questions. So want to do some, want to hear from you all about what came out of those conversations. So would love for folks to come off of mute and share what came out of those conversations. And just for my sake and other folks who might not know you, if folks could share their name and their pronouns first, and then let us know what came out of the conversations in your group. Any volunteers to go first?
I'll go.
Go for it.
Yeah, hi everyone. I was in a room with Quinn, Jenny, and Brian. And here were some of the ideas that were shared.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Really quickly, can you share your name and your pronouns first, and then you can go?
Yes, my name is Mary Jo Ebert. My pronouns are she, her.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Hi, Booker T. I see you waving. Okay, so here are some of the thoughts that were shared about what abolition means to us. Dismantling, dissolving structures that are doing harm. This can include beliefs, assumptions, and history. A driver of it may be the ability to imagine something else. Getting rid of things that we came up with ourselves, like systems and even perceived power that has been created by ourselves.
Thank you so much for that, Mary. Thank you so much. Anybody else want to share? Go for it, Alexandria.
Yeah, my name is Alexandria. Pronouns are she and her. And in our group, so some of the things we talked about is how abolition is something that we aren't familiar with, that has been unseen, complete opposite to our reality, and how that can kind of be scary. But in that, there's freedom and the feeling of safety, and not just for some. We also talked about how it's not about a Band-Aid on prisons. It's about transformation instead. And this is kind of just coming to mind, but when abolition happens, it means that everybody is worth fighting for, and not just some being humanized and humanity being selective. Currently, humanity is selective with the system we have. Now I will stop there.
Thank you so much for that. That was super, super powerful. Thank you, Alexandria. Anybody else? Maybe one or two more people want to share some of the things that came out in their group?
I'll pop in here.
Go
My
for it.
name is Jasmine. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the HR manager for Michigan Liberation. And I just want to lift up one of our legacies, Ron, in our breakout. I know he doesn't mind, but he said something very prolific in our thing. It is acknowledging hurt. And Ron, I'm sorry if I'm paraphrasing, but he said, acknowledging your own power to fight power that is incurring harm. So I just wanted to lift him up. That was very powerful. I hope I don't sound redundant.
Thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate that.
Thank you both. Thank you, Ryan and Jasmine, for uplifting that and bringing that to the fore. That's beautiful. Anybody else? One more person want to share? Anybody? Okay, totally fine. If you totally fine, Nell. If you want, you could drop your thoughts in the chat. Also, that's another way you can engage. Anybody else want to go before we move on?
I can hop in real
Go
quick.
for it,
Hey
Ash.
everyone, my name is Ash, pronoun she, they, and sunshine. And I think one thing that came up in the group as well, it was myself, Jasmine, and Ron, was like the term abolition, at the core of what it is the ending or dismantling of an idea, a system, or a belief. And in our particular case, that idea is the criminal legal system, prisons, police, and those things.
Thank you for that, Ash, and thank you everyone so much for participating in those conversations and sharing your thoughts and ideas. I know sometimes it can be hard to do that. So I'm going to share the definition that we use here at the Advancement Project, and want to give all credit to Critical Resistance, which is a national organization that's been around, been a leader in the abolitionist space. Since I ever first heard about abolition, I heard about critical resistance, and this is the offering that they give us around defining what abolition is. And so they they talk about abolition. So PIC, and PIC stands for the Prison Industrial Complex, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But Prison Industrial Complex abolition is a political vision with the goal of eliminating imprisonment, policing, and surveillance, and creating lasting alternatives to punishment and imprisonment, right? And so it's very similar to everything that folks shared, right? It's about eliminating this current system of things that exist in these current ways of operating that really center around imprisonment, center around policing, and center around surveillance. And we want to create lasting alternatives um, to those things around punishment and imprisonment, right? And that's really what abolition is about. It's not just about the burning down or destruction of one system, but I think the more important part of it is it's about recreating and rebuilding a system that actually works for us in our communities. Any questions about that or thoughts that folks want to share about that definition? How does that land on folks?
Can you repeat what PIC stands for, please?
PIC stands for Prison Industrial Complex, and I actually have a resource for folks. I'm gonna share that really quickly. I'm gonna drop a link in the chat for folks. But PIC stands for Prison Industrial Complex. And here's a link also from Critical Resistance. And this link actually breaks down both of those terms, right? So it talks about what the prison industrial complex is and gives you kind of an in-depth definition of that, and then it also talks about abolition, and goes into a more deeper description of around what abolition is, and so I wanted to give that to folks um, as a resource so folks can deepen their understanding. And then the next thing I want to do actually is I want to share a quick video that talks about abolition, um, and is also from Critical Resistance. So this is the link that I just shared with everybody. It gives a deeper definition about the prison industrial complex and talks about how it describes the overlapping interest of government and industry that use surveillance, policing, and imprisonment as solutions to economic, social, and political problems. So I encourage folks to read that. I also just encourage folks to take a deeper dive into the Critical Resistance website. Tons of resources and tools for folks who want to learn more about abolition. And so really quickly want to play this video for folks just to kind of give give more context to what we mean when we talk about abolition. And so I'm gonna play this video for folks.
Abolition means abolition for everyone, even the people we strongly dislike, even the people who hurt us. It is about addressing the root causes of harm and violence for our communities. It is about upending the entire world that allows these types of violences to occur. And it is difficult work, but it is crucial to build and imagine together what this world could look like. We owe it to each other. We owe it to ourselves. Abolition can't wait. Our lives and futures depend on it.
Yeah, so just wanted to share that again. Another video from Critical Resistance. Really just highlighting the fact that abolition is for everybody, right? And if we watched that whole video, we didn't watch that whole video. That was just a section from it. They even talk about it, right? Even when we talk about the police, who are killing people in our community. From an abolitionist perspective, our goal is not to have them incarcerated or locked up in jail, because we believe that no one should be incarcerated and locked up in jail. And that we have to do the work to envision a world of communities that operate outside of the prison industrial complex, policing, surveillance, and imprisonment. And so this last little bubble is just kind of, summarizing that, right? It's not just about the absence of these things, but it's about presence, right? And so as we think about abolition, as we think about dismantling and destroying these systems, we also have to be present and create something to replace these systems. And so the next thing I wanted to do is give us some more things to chew on, some more questions to talk about. And we're going to do this again in small groups. And we're going to discuss these three questions, which is really trying to help us to interrogate the relationship between harm and crime. And so in your small groups, folks will get the opportunity to discuss these three questions. What is the relationship between harm and crime? Do we always seek punishment for every harm? Every time someone's hurt, is there always a punishment that has to go along with it? And does accountability only mean jail or prison? And so in your small groups, you'll discuss these questions. I'll drop them in the chat for folks so that you all can have them in your small groups. And then folks will have about uh, 15 minutes or so to discuss these questions in your small group. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about it collectively. Are there any questions about that before I break folks out into breakout groups?
Chris, I have one question. Will we be in the same breakout groups or different breakout groups?
No. There may be some overlap, but I'm going to try to put folks in new rooms so you can get to have and engage in conversation with some new folks.
Great.
I have a question
Sounds good.
too. Sorry, this is
Yeah,
Brandy.
no
Uh,
problem.
yeah, just wondering, like, should we self-identify into roles once we're in breakout groups? Like, should there be a note taker, a designated report out person, or we freestyling?
Yeah. Thank you for those facilitated questions, Ray. Yeah, no, folks can totally freestyle. When we come back, we'll do kind of popcorn style report back, so everybody will have an opportunity to report back and talk about, what came up in those conversations. So no need to stress about taking notes or identifying somebody to do a report back. Really want folks to focus on getting diving deep into these questions in your groups.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, no problem. Can always tell when you got other facilitators in the room because they be asking them facilitated questions. Cool. Are there any other questions before I open up the breakout rooms? And I'll drop this in the chat for folks. Actually, let me do that right quick now before I open up the breakout rooms. I'll drop these questions in the chat for everybody. And if there's no questions, then I'm gonna open up the rooms and it'll work the same way it did before. So I will see you all back here at about 6:55. Sorry. I'll see you all back in this room at about 6:55. Give you about 15 minutes to really engage in conversation.
In the top corner, there's a box that any scripts. At the top
Welcome, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Just a reminder, folks, to put yourself on mute. If you're not on mute right now, you should be on mute. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks, everyone, so much for participating in those conversations. Excited to hear what came out of them. So what we're gonna do now is just do some quick report backs, popcorn style. Love to hear what came out of those conversations. What's some things that you heard that got you thinking? Any thoughts that folks want to share that came out of their breakout groups. And yeah, again, just popcorn style. Anybody that wants to come off mute and speak to things that they heard or things that they said themselves. Is free to do so. And I'm gonna stop the screen share for this part just so that we can all kind of see each other more fully. And I can pull the questions back up if need be. Any volunteers to go first?
I guess I will. My name is Booker T. I'm an organizer with Michigan Liberation. My pronouns are he, him. And when it comes to connecting, I didn't see the questions in there, but I remember what we were talking about as far as relating the criminal crime and harm. So what is the relationship between harm and crime? I look at when you punish someone for being mental health, when you punish someone for being homeless, you want to put them in jail because they urinated around the corner in the alley, but where in the hell was they supposed to go? When all the gas stations say that the bathrooms don't work when the people go up in there because you just can't, you don't know if you're helping someone or you're having someone go up in there and shoot drugs or whatever. But the bottom line is the human decency of something is taken away from somebody when they can't use the bathroom somewhere because they're homeless, and for us to penalize a person for being in that situation instead of looking at it as not bad people who need to be punished, but broken people who can be fixed. And can is with opportunity. And in our, also we were speaking in our little meeting that we had in our breakout where one of the brothers was talking about when you're talking about abolishing things, and one of the things that really hit the core is abolishing the ideas, because those communities that are rooted and entrenched in these thoughts and everything is because that they are, believing in this system and everything. And so abolishing, changing ideas, changing the minds, because the thought is the cause of everything.
Thank you so much of that. Thank you so much of that. I think you highlighted a very great point, right? Is some things being homeless. Who is harmed by somebody being homeless besides the person that's actually homeless, right? I think you brought up some important point. Who's harmed by somebody relieving themselves? You know what I'm saying? In nature, outside, on the side of a tree, on the side of a building. It's all outside of nature. Who is actually harmed by that. I think you brought up some great points. Other thoughts that folks might want to share. Everybody can go.
I go out there so we don't just be here just for the purpose of learning something. So let me say this, if we are to be abolitionists, then we have to take and challenge our thinking. We can't take and say, it's not about taking and using labels, okay? Being whatever you are is not just simply about a label. If you're gonna take a position, then that means you have to take and critically analyze your values, analyze your value systems, analyze the ideas and the concepts that you possess. One of the things that I particularly note from people with lived experience that are coming home from prison. They, we have a tendency when it comes to taking and looking for change, we go to incumbents. We go to people who are actually in office. And many times these people have been in those positions for decades. And so I ask myself, who do you think created the harm you are asking to be reformed? Who do you think created the harm? And it's like you get the greatest pushback when you push against the incumbents. You know, I can remember taking and being somewhere in Lansing, and I won't mention a person, but this particular group was supposed to have been having a conversation with the Democratic candidates, and one of the candidates, or the candidate, was Hillary Clinton. And I suggested some ideas or concerns to address, and the person said, "Why do you say that? Because I'm a woman?" And I said, "No, because I just got out of prison having served 43 and a half years." Okay? This is the same damn person that took and helped with a bullhorn holler across the nation about what it was called predators, super predators. Okay, you can put Hillary Clinton's name in your phone and just say Hillary Clinton and super predators, and you will find her giving a speech about these terrible kids that the nation won't be able to handle. Okay, and this is the same damn woman that's running for president. That's now that these kids done growed up and come out of prison, or some of them done died in prison, she now asking for their vote, saying, "Oh, but I'm sorry." And the peoples that normally push against the ones that saying, "No, I want to hold you accountable," is other people who spent time in a jail space with you. Nothing about that is abolition. Nothing about that is abolition. So what I'm saying is that before we begin to organize and begin to push people in office, give people who have never held office a chance to tell you they run it. Give them a chance to say that I've heard your ideas, I've heard your cry, and that I'm standing up and I want to hear, I want to listen, and I want to champion you. Many of us that already ran up under the incumbents before the newcomers stand up and tell you, "I done heard you." They in your space. And we don't take and support them. We go find somebody that's been in office for 20 years, and the person that's sitting there with you that never held the office, that done heard everything you done said, you push them aside. That's not abolition. That's, I won't go that far, but that's not abolition. We'll leave that alone. Thank you.
Oh, you're on mute, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Ray. Thanks for that, Edward. I appreciate that. And thank you, Booker. Other folks, I would love to hear folks about thoughts on, do we always seek punishment for every harm? Anybody have some thoughts they want to share on that?
To say that I had in our room, I had basically shared a story being formerly a business entrepreneur and owning a gas station. We had just had a brand new gas station, completely, tore down, built, had it up and running for about a month across the street from a high school. And some of the kids had the tendency of coming in, picking up candy bars and whatever. We try to cut the bottoms out the box, so when they pick up the whole box to take out, the candy will look, so we were trying to prevent a lot of theft. But in the meantime, we still had concerns with, because we were open store, but we still had an area that was glassed off. So my husband had a security system installed in the door that will automatically lock. So when people need to go to the bathroom, they can lock the door and not be, concerned that somebody is still in the store. still there inside the store while they're in the restroom. The day after having this particular gadget installed on the door, automatic locking system, we had a motto, my brother could attest to it because he used to work for us, where we would give homeless people food. We give them sandwiches, whatever, snacks. So long story short was our manager one day, the following day after having this device installed on the door, automatic locking system, a young man had come in and he wanted to get stuff that wasn't on our approved list to give away, a big old orange juice, glass bottle orange juice, and some other things. And she told him no and was telling him the things that he could. And he says, nope, he's going to take this. And she locked him inside. And he went ballistic. And he had a little hand weight on his arm with the belt. The belt had the hand weight, and he went to splatter, and he started in the cooler, and there was a lot of glass bottled drinks in there. So everything, and it looked like a crime scene. Oddly enough, when the police walked in, they were like, Lester, what did you do? And Lester was formerly, he was there was a mental health facilities all up and down in the neighborhood of West Grand Boulevard, and they let him out certain times of the day. He could just roam the streets, and he had an issue. And to answer the questions in terms of how we were going to address this, was there a relationship between harm and crime? Well, yeah, I think they kind of interrelated. Do we always seek punishment for every harm? And, we decided against prosecuting him because, I think the system had already harmed him by not doing the right thing to protect him and getting him the help that he needed. And does accountability always mean jail or prison? And that was a no, to the point that we refused to prosecute, and we wound up, the insurance company refused to pay for all of the damage. It literally looked like a crime scene. People that was all around were thinking that somebody had got shot in there. The blood was all over, and it was his blood. And so again, to that point, does accountability always mean jail or prison? No. And just to reiterate, the harm was on him as well, in terms of a broken system that did not address his issues and his needs.
Thank you for sharing that story. Now, thank you for that. I think that was a great example. Thank you for responding. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next piece? Want to see if there's any other thoughts that folks want to share from their breakout groups.
I did have one. Alexandria pronounced she and her. And this what the question is: every harm punished. Oh, does jail pushes me accountability? Okay, so like for this one, I like I think I'm thinking of the wrong one. Okay. Do we always seek punishment for every harm? So like for this one, I thought about like me here, like I know we don't, but I thought about the people who always like bring up rape or pedophilia, and how those should just be punished, lock you up, throw away the key. But then I thought about when that feeling is turned into policy and who that harms at the end of the day. It's not worth it, like to turn that into a lockup, throw away the key. It does not benefit the majority of people in our country, middle class, low class, BIPOC people, it doesn't. And I don't know, like I also thought about if we had abolition, if it happened, would that even exist? Would there even be pedophilia or rape cases? Like if we had a new system? Like, I don't, like that makes me want to fight more when I think about that in that way.
Yeah, I just want to slide in real quick and just point out that like I would love to be free from the binary of like punishment and accountability, like them being used, as the same thing, because while like clearly folks get off, and so like, you know, punishment isn't sought for every harm, right? It is often the only alternative or the only choice we're giving, when what we really want is like accountability. And that speaks to deeper repair and transformation. And so just going to keep pointing it out, like we have to decolonize our minds that like punishment does not equal accountability. And so like, what do we actually mean and need to see when we say accountability and harm needs to be repaired?
Thank you for that, Ray. I think that's a great point to wrap this up on, right? Is that, you know, when we really think about it, right, when we really get down to the nitty gritty of it, right? Every harm isn't a crime, right? And a lot of crimes aren't things that we necessarily want punishment for. I think, like Ray just said, right, a lot of these things are things we want accountability for. We want those interpersonal harms to be repaired, and our current system doesn't really allow for create space for those interpersonal harms to be repaired, or even the mental health issues that folks might suffer from, or whatever may be going on for folks. The current system doesn't address those things, and in a lot of cases it exacerbates the situation. When we think about locking up a homeless person, for whatever crimes of poverty they may have committed, those things go on their record, and then when they come back to our communities, they're even less in a position to be able to become what they call a- um, um, uh, upstanding citizens that are ready to participate in the day-to-day lives of society. Um, Prison and jail oftentimes, further takes them away from being able to do that. And so, yeah, thank you everyone for thinking about those questions and providing your thoughts and input on that. The goal, right, when we think about abolition, when we think about an abolitionist world, the goal that we're striving for is, how do we address harm? How do we address harm in ways that doesn't further exacerbate the problem? How do we address harm in ways that isn't always reliant that isn't reliant on punishment? And how do we address harm in ways that actually gives true accountability? It doesn't mean that we're just going to send people to jail or prison, which a lot of times doesn't give any type of accountability to our communities. And so, just again, all of this is to say that we have to rethink harm, we have to rethink crime, punishment, and we have to rethink what accountability means and what that really looks like for us. And so this next piece is a quote from Ruth Wilson Gilmore, a scholar who's written lots of things about abolition. Encourage folks to go out and check out some of her different works. But want to collectively take some time to read this as a group, and have a little bit of collective discussion about it. So we'd love to get a volunteer to maybe read that first line up to "not a blueprint," and then get another person to volunteer to read that second line up to where we are going, and then we'll keep going like that. So any volunteers to read that first line for us?
I'll go.
Go for it.
Abolition is a practical program of radical change cobbled together from the work people do in disparate struggles every day. It is a vision, not a blueprint.
We don't know how we're getting there, but we have a vision for what there is, and we know where we're going.
It is a
Thank you.
vision. Are we reading the rest of it?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
It is a vision for life after prison. Borders, capitalism, racism, sexism, gender, normality. It is a vision for what we must do during the struggle to realize.
And I'll read the last couple of lines. In other words, it is a vision where we're always planning to win, even if we don't know what the fight is yet. We conceive of the fight, figure out who to hold hands with, and who to shy away from. And so, yeah, just want to hear, how does this land on folks' spirits? How does this sit with you? What comes up for you when you hear this paragraph? Yeah, anybody can share. Yeah, what comes up for folks around this?
Okay. It comes up for me where it's saying it is a vision where we're always planning to win, even if we don't know what the fight is yet. Me growing up in Detroit, one block west of Illinois, seeing the riots of Detroit go down the road as a 10-year-old child, 1 year. I seen when they came through with the army tanks, I seen when they came through and laid it out for us and everything. And the next year, the Tigers won a World Series. The year before, we had martial law. People don't know what that is really, and to see that really enforced. Well, as a 10-year-old child, I seen that, and it confused me too. And I seen all the Martin Luther King, the Malcolm X, assassination of the Kennedys, and growing up through all of that and seeing the way that they were treating the blacks and everything during that time, it just made me angry. And I was listening to the music of the times, and the music was revolutionary, and it made me think. And it was like, okay, it was an opportunity also where the music was more escape with partying and everything. Partying turned into a criminal behavior led me to prison, but fighting it blindly is what I see and relate to what I was just speaking on. So it kind of threw me there.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that, Booker. Any other thoughts? Anybody else want to share their thoughts?
I think the way it is described without any certainty, without any definitive statements or ideas or concepts or expressions, it's evident that abolition is about not only what you can take and articulate or perceive, but it's also about what you feel. Naturally, you instinctively know when something is wrong, when something takes and hurts your sense of humanity, and you want to free yourself from that. You want to rid it. And you don't necessarily know what it is. It's like waking up in the morning and you don't know, where and you can sleep well, but you want to rid yourself of that feeling now that you done woke up. And that's what abolition is. You know, you don't exactly know what the nightmare was. You don't exactly know what the situation is, but you feel it and you feel that it ain't right.
Definitely. Thank you for that, Edward. Appreciate that. Ash has their hand up. I'm gonna go to Ash.
Yeah, I think what stood out to me and what Ruth Wilson Gilmore said was that it's a vision and not a blueprint. And I think that that's important to know. You know, we don't know. She goes on to say, we don't know how we're getting there, but we have the vision for what there is and where it's going. And I think that's important to note, right? Because, like, we don't have the blueprint. We don't have the intricate makings of how to make the system exist as of like yesterday. But, you know, we do have the vision of what it could be and what it can look like. And I think, you know, that's important because, like, if there is no blueprint, like, these systems have been in play for centuries. So in our lifetime and our ancestors' lifetime, there have been these systems of harm. So it's almost kind of hard to imagine like what the world would look like without these systems because that's all we ever known. But there are folks out there with a vision, and there are folks out there who have an idea, and there are folks out there who want to feel safe and healed. They may not fully, have the language or know what that it takes to get there, but they have that vision of them feeling free and happy and whole and healthy. So I think, like, I just wanted to say that part stood out for me.
Thank you for that, Ash. Thank you for that. Definitely. So we got Mary Jo, Alexandria, and Quentin with their hands up. We're gonna take those hands and then we're gonna move on to our next section. So Mary Jo, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just like to add a quick point here from the first sentence. It occurs to me that sometimes the word abolition sounds like something that is going to be a major blow something up, and or tear it down, and in a big move of some kind. From the first sentence, though, what I'm reading is that it's radical change that comes about from a number of disparate struggles that are going on, and that says to me that sometimes it is incremental and it can occur incrementally. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mary. I think that is a great, great point. Alexandria.
Yes. So for me, the part that stands out to me both is uh, it being a vision for life after prison, borders, capitalism, racism, sexism, gender normality, that all of those things. That stands out to me because it shows how abolition is more than just the criminal legal system. It is also capitalism, and this makes me think of colonialism. If you want to truly abolish, you can say you abolish the legal system, then it would make sense to have those who colonized you still in charge of creating the currency that you use in your communities. That's an extension of our racist system. So it makes me think about that, the length and the how far and wide abolition is, the worldview of abolition.
Thank you so much for that. And then last one we're gonna go to is Quentin.
Thank you. Yeah. Just a quick thought. The last sentence, the conceive of the fight and figure out who to hold hands with and who to shy away from, is making me sort of flip some of my thinking. I mean, I think there's real value in sort of finding folks that you align with and creating mission from that, but also being clear about what the goals and mission are, and then being willing to sort of find people and for and against along the way and figure it out as you go in that sense. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you, thank you. Thanks everyone for sharing and sharing their thoughts about this. Quentin, if you could go back on mute, that'd be great. Thanks everyone for sharing their thoughts on this, and Jasmine, I believe. Oh, yeah, thank you, thank you. Thanks everyone for sharing their thoughts on this. I think everything that folks shared are definitely important pieces. Really want to highlight, right, that it's a practical program, right, that to of radical change, right? And it's cobbled together from all of the work that we do. Really, highlighting for me in that point, right, is how intersectional abolition is, right? We're cobbling together all of our work, whether it's for against the carceral state, whether it's around healthcare, whether it's around housing. Abolition can be applied to all of those different frameworks, and when we bring all of those things together, that's what's going to get us to an abolitionist future. Like Ash was saying, there is no roadmap. What I like to say to people on this piece, right, that there is no blueprint. When the slaves knew all slaves knew is that they wanted to be free. For young people, for black people that was born into slavery that didn't know anything else but the fact that they were slaves, they knew one thing for sure, that they wanted to be free. And they didn't have no roadmap and no blueprint to get themselves to freedom, but they made it and they visioned about it and they developed it, and to the point where they got to some semblance of freedom. And then going back to what I was saying before, right? It's not just about police and prisons, but it's about borders, capitalism, racism, sexism, all of these different systems of oppression that exist in our world. Abolition encompasses all of those things. And then, like Quentin was saying, we got to find our people. We got to find the people that we want to stand up in this fight with. And we also have to be clear about who are our people, all our kinfolk, all skin folk and kinfolk, and all the other sayings that we have in our communities, to say that we have to figure out who we're aligned with. And that's through their actions, that's through the words that come out of their mouths, that's through the values that they exhibit, in the ways that they live their lives. And we have to figure out who we want to hold hands with and who we want to distance ourselves from and who we want to get away from. And so, yeah, just thanks everyone for participating in that. I just want to highlight those few points. And so, continuing on, just another quote from Ruth Wilson Gilmore that's going to lead us into this next section. And apologies if I start moving a little faster. We're running a little behind on time, and so I want to make sure we cover some of these next couple of concepts and give you all an opportunity to do a little bit of freedom dreaming in your groups. And so, in talking about this idea of reformist versus non-reformist, organizing work, policy changes, different things like that, right? Ruth Wilson Gilmore gives us a quote that says, "What is going to happen the morning after we won? If what is likely to happen is that we're going to tear down what we won, that is an abolition." What is that? Um, uh, what I think is important about this quote, right, and especially in the things that we're going to talk about here next, is that we want to create reforms, right? We want to create change to the system, not changes that we want to have to go back and undo later, right? So we don't want to go and uh, ask for things or request things or fight for things that later on we're going to have to go back and fight to tear that thing down. We don't want to propose bills and policies that we're going to have to go back later and say, yeah, that actually didn't do what we wanted it to do, and it actually put us in a worse position than we wanted it to put us in. And that's really what we're talking about when we talk about reformist goals versus non-reformist goals. Or another way to think about that is reformist goals versus abolitionist goals. And critical resistance, again, has given us a tool to help us think about that. But here are a few questions that you can ask yourself in trying to think about this. So those questions are: does the proposed reform expand the reach of the prison industrial complex or of policing or of the prison system or of the jail system? Anything, right? If you apply this question to it, does it expand the reach of that system? If the answer is yes, then it's a reformist reform. Does the proposed reform give more money or resources to the prison industrial complex or to the system that we're trying to fight against? If the answer is yes, then it's a reformist reform. And does the proposed reform protect the legitimacy or the validity or the this thing needs to exist? Does it protect that idea that this thing needs to exist? If the answer is yes, then it's a reformist reform. And going back to the quote, we want to shy away from creating reformist reforms because all of those things deep, deeply entrench these systems and make it harder for us to tear them down. And so critical resistance developed this tool to kind of help us think through this. And so it's you can find this on the Critical Resistance website, and I'm happy to share this with folks as well. But it asks, some very simple questions, and then it kind of interrogates those things, those proposals that we've seen. So does anybody want to volunteer to kind of pick one of these that we see here on the right? So there's body cameras, community policing, more training, civilian review boards, or killer cops, prosecute them. Does anybody want to take us through one of those so that we can kind of read through these responses together? Any volunteers?
Yeah, I can volunteer with body cameras. So, do body cameras reduce police funding? It increases the funding, equipping police officers with body cams. It'll require more money going towards police budgets. Do body cams challenge the notion that police increase safety? No. Body cams are pitched as making police more accountable, increasing the idea that policing done right makes people safe. Does body cameras reduce tools, tactics, and technology police have at their disposal? No, it increases. Body cameras provide the police with another tool, increasing surveillance and increasing police budgets to acquire more gadgets. And lastly, do body cams reduce the scale of policing? And that's also no. It actually increases. Body cams are based on the idea that police who do not use excessive force are less threatening, but police can turn off body cams, and when used, footage often doesn't have the impact that community members want or is used for surveillance.
Thank you for that, Ray. Thank you for that. So yeah, this is that was a great example, right? Body cameras is something that has become a tool that has we do see everywhere. I mean, this was like an early proposal, right? When we started talking about defunding police, body cameras was one of the early solutions that was brought out to folks. And here we see all the reasons why that wasn't necessarily the best way for us to move in terms of trying to get us to an abolitionist future. Let's do one more of these. Anybody else want to take another one on the list here and read out? Anybody? Any volunteers?
You said which ones?
Anyone you want to that's on the screen. So Ray just did body cameras, so community policing, more training, civilian review boards, or jail killer cops, prosecute police who have killed and abused civilians. Whichever one you want to
Okay.
read through.
So I'll do community policing. I'll just go next up. Does this reduce the funding to police? No. Advocates of community policing argue that departments will have to hire more cops to be in neighborhoods and in the community. Does this challenge the notion that police increases safety? No. This is based on the belief that policing is focused on keeping people safe, and the violence of policing is caused by the breakdown of trust with the community. Does this reduce tools, tactics, technology police have at their disposal? It increases. Cops are trained in additional tactics and approaches. Does this reduce the scale of policing? No. More community police mean that the scale of policing will increase, particularly in Black, brown, poor neighborhoods where there is a perceived mistrust.
Thank you, thank you for that, Ash. So yeah, this is another great example, right? That we hear oftentimes, right? Community policing. If the police came from our neighborhoods, things would be better, etc., etc. And we see, through using this scale, all of the ways that it doesn't take power, it doesn't take resources away from police, and actually further entrenches them into our communities. And so we're going to go on to the next slide, which talks about why some of these things, we talked about some ideas that would be moving us more towards an abolitionist future. Any volunteers to read a couple of volunteers to read one or two of these off of this list?
If I can get you to take and read it, I will take and give you my commentary on it because I'm challenged with those little small words.
All
I
right,
was just
totally
getting ready to
understand.
say the same thing. You need to kind of make the words a little bit bigger.
No, just go
Okay.
ahead and read them and I'll take and give you my commentary on it.
All right. So, I'm gonna read the one that I like the best. So I like withhold pensions and don't rehire cops involved in excessive force. So, does withholding pensions and not rehiring cops involved in excessive force reduce funding to police? Yes, this can increase community-based budgets as municipalities no longer pay for policing harm against community members. Does this challenge the notion that police increase safety? Yes, it challenges the notion that killings and excessive force are exceptions rather than the rule. And then, does this reduce tools, tactics, technology that police have at their disposal? And it's yes, because it reduces the ability of police forces to move around or re-engage cops known for their use of violence. And then the last one is, does this reduce the scale of policing? And that answer is yes. It does reduce the scale because it's when cops do harm, right? They'll lose their pension, and they won't be able to go and work for another um, police district, and it also discourages other folks from wanting to become police. When you really think about it, because everybody cares about their pension. So yeah, go ahead, Ed. If you have some thoughts you want to share on that.
Well, the control of the money does change the dynamics, but like everything in looking at it in theory, looks even reform look like abolition, and it looks like a solution until you see its actual practice. Because even though the dynamics change and go to someone else's hand, like for those who say that the budget won't be available, the pension won't be available, and these are great ideas. I believe that this is one of the things that we need to go after. We need to somehow figure out how to take and literally sue these unions funding. This was did in the case with the Klans, where the Klans was taking it, carrying out certain terroristic, domestic terroristic acts, and there were a survivor or mother of some person that took and sued that particular fraternity, and she bankrupted them. And we have to do the same thing in terms of our unions. We have to take and figure out how in the world have we gave more autonomy to an unelected body that dictates the rules to the elected body. And so that's a key. It's not just simply taking and giving rules and saying that, hey, we're going to switch around some rules. We'll take this. The government right now somehow then passed the rules on to the police, to their union. Their union is the one who says that they have immunity. Their union is the one who says how much money they got, more so than you and I and the people who we have elected. So I don't know if that's a reform or not, but I know that if you get control of that money, you can control them.
Word. Thank you so much for that, Ed. I believe that was Edward. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so I just dropped a link to this PDF in the chat so that folks can view it a little bit easier and also have it for your future references. I think, as you all think about your campaigns and your work related to the carceral state, this is a great tool that you all can go through to use, even if it's like trying to think about closing local jails, different things like that. This is a great tool to use to say, does this reduce funding to the jail? Does this challenge the notion that the jail is necessary to increase public safety? Does this does this reduce the tools, tactics, and technology available to the jail? All of these things can be applied. This tool can be applied to anything along the spectrum around the carceral state, and trying to apply abolitionist reforms to the work that we are doing. And so just want to stop there briefly and see if there's any questions. I see we got some comments in the chat. Okay, yep.
Yeah, I was just chiming in, and requiring cops to be liable for misconduct settlements is a necessity. It's a must.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And then as you know was mentioned in the chat, we're gonna talk, more about this from a bail perspective on the 24th, from the 24th to the 26th. Encourage folks to come out, join us in making this, developing this campaign to end cash money bail in the Michigan and Detroit, and Michigan as a whole, and in Detroit. So encourage folks to come through. Yeah, that's a hard fight right there. Alexandria raised maybe turning the union workers into anti-police union groups will help to stop the police unions from having so much power. There is a lot of varying opinions on that. Some union folks totally agree with that stance. Don't feel like that police unions are like regular labor unions, and they in a lot of ways they act very differently than we see regular labor unions. But there are some folks that feel like an attack on police unions would lead to further attacks on labor unions. But I think that's a great thing to uplift. Um, yeah. So the next thing, and the last thing that we're going to do in this last 20 minutes that we have left, is just like we've talked about throughout this entire training. Um, we want visioning, right? We've never lived in a world without policing. We've never lived in a world without prisons. We've never lived in a world without bail. And so I want to give folks the opportunity to really think about to really think about and vision and dream about what the world looks like without those systems, what the world looks like without cash bail, what the world looks like without prisons, both and either or. I know here on the screen, it speaks to in cash money bail. We know that that's one of you all's more active campaigns right now. But I want to broaden it a little bit since this was more of a broader conversation. Encourage folks to think about this, in the sense of the years 2050, so about 27 years from now, you all have won. You've been successful in your organizing and Michigan liberation, and you all have ended cash bail. You've ended the reliance on police and prisons, and we keep us safe is the unifying chant, is the unifying song, is the headline for your communities, for your work. And what that looks like, what it took for you all to get there. What are the things that you all have used to replace the current system of things? And I'm going to give folks about 10 minutes in small groups to discuss that, and then we'll come back and do some report backs. Um, I do want folks this time to take some notes, get a note taker, have someone that's prepared to report back to the larger group about what you all came up with. I know 8 minutes is not a long time for you all to talk about this. 10 minutes is not a long time for you all to talk about this, but want to give you all the opportunity to do that. And so, yeah, are there any questions about this before we open up the breakout rooms? But essentially, folks are going to go do some freedom dreaming. The year is 2050, and y'all have won an abolitionist future for Michigan. And what does that look like? What was the steps that it took for y'all to get there? Any questions? All right. So we will come back at 7. We'll come back at 7:50. So folks will have about 7 minutes to talk about this, to come up with some ideas. Doesn't have to be fully fleshed out. And then when we come back to a larger group, we'll do a quick report back, do some plus deltas, and then we'll close out for today. Um, Opening up the breakout rooms now. I'll see you all in a bit. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you all so much for participating in that activity. Super excited to hear what folks came up with. What's this vision? What's this vision for our abolitionist futures? Anybody want to go first?
I can go ahead and get it on out the way. I was elected reporter, so this news coverage is coming from you from Breakout Room. Sorry, didn't pay attention to the number. So in my group, we had myself, Jasmine, she, her, from MiLib, Alexandria, Ron, and Ray. Basically, what we envision this future to look like is an abundance of mental health resources, and as well as community training for crisis intervention. The goal is to less harm, less crime. If people are provided for, there would be less reason for crime. We also mentioned healing from colonization, and the importance of people knowing where they come from, who they are. Shout out to Michigan Liberation and respect the roots, because if people know their roots, they can grow better and freer. There was also mention of, if we are taking the money, if we no longer have police and imprisonment, the funds need to go to somewhere else. So basically providing the necessary spending for removing the survivor's burden, basic life sustaining needs would be covered, community health, housing, and education, with special shouts out to mental health, reproductive health, stuff like that. Housing and education would also be free, so removing the burden of just basic life sustaining needs would be replacing those funds from prisons to overabundance, which would be one of the key components of removing crime. So that settles it. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you so much for that. That was amazing. Word. So okay, and then Alexandria with the with the notes in the chat to make sure we're clear about what's happening here. Word. Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much. Any questions for that group before we go on to the next one?
Just a couple of things I wanted to add to be clear. Like, since the police are gone, like we're using 100% of our tax dollars to address like life. So community housing, community health, and everything that comes on that spectrum. I was talking shit like universal basic income. We should all just get a slice of that, like the housing's, provided. And then wanted to talk about community preparedness, because I feel like that's the big thing we hear from our elders. And like, we're living in a world where like funds are used to train, neighborhood blocks on what happens, right? Like if there's a large flood, to like if there needs to be a truth and reconciliation type of situation there. So just to be clear, using all of the funds to build community.
Love it, love it, love it. Funding life. That's what I'm talking about. All right, well, thank y'all so much. I appreciate that group. The next group, any other group that wasn't in that group want to go next?
We also had a conversation about the importance of mental health support, and we look forward to a future where, the community is able to participate in that. And, I mentioned just today, after about a month, they finally released the note that the Lansing shooter had left, and you know, they were probably trying to keep that under wraps, the police. But you know, he felt left behind. He felt and he was somebody who was in need of help, and he didn't get it. And you know, that's a decision by you know, the people in power. It's a decision not to address that actively. And so we look forward to a future where we tear down that system and replace it with something that is going to support everybody, and just won't let that happen in the first place.
Word. Thank you so much, Mark, and everybody in that group. I think we have one, maybe two more groups, so I want to go on to the next group. I know we're running short on time, and I want to respect folks' time. So the next group, and anybody that just hasn't gone yet, feel free to go if you wasn't in one of those first two groups.
The Edward Sanders and so yeah, shout out to year 2050, y'all. Hope I'm still around. I would kind of check in on what Ray has said in terms of the people now have that money, so now we can really celebrate inclusivity for the people who have felt as though they were on the outside looking in. Now they are included. So we had talked about relationship building. Our group had also talked about accountability. Principles of transparency now can exist, respect, honor, and trust. Changing the power of money and reducing that market of fear. So we know how fear mongering and purging can impact certain processes as a result of people creating, having their own narrative. Relationship building, networking, security, safety, which is going to be aligned with that community health facet, education, free, just living harmoniously, y'all. So yeah.
Yes to harmony. Yes to harmony. Yes, indeed. Oh, thank you so much for that, Neil. That was beautiful. Is there any other group that hasn't gone yet? All right. I'm gonna take that as a no. I think everybody has gone. We lost a few people too, so I think our groups got a little bit smaller. And so I think, yeah, that was everybody. But yes. So yes to all of those things. As you know, what our abolitionist future can look like. Again, the importance of this activity is because none of us, literally none of us, have experienced the world, and if you have, please let me know where that place was where you experienced it so I can go there. But none of us have experienced a world without police or prisons. It has been there since the day we were born. It was what we was taught in school, and as early as kindergarten. We was learning about cops and robbers, not even realizing that the robbers that they was talking about was us. And so um, but this is why we are, visioning. This is why we are dreaming, just like our ancestors did when they were born into slavery, because that's when we really, the first time we saw abolition was the abolition of slavery, right? And so, just like our ancestors did, they had never even felt what freedom was. But they knew that that's what they wanted, and they figured out the roadmap and the pathway to get as close to that as they possibly could because I kind of still believe like slavery has not been abolished yet. We still got some work to do on that. But I think we are here and we are learning about this, right? Because we are understanding how we're going to continue to carry the torch forward to move our people and move ourselves closer to that reality. And so that is all I have, you all. This is very intro 101, basic level understanding of abolition. There's so much more out there that can be learned. There's so much out there to be read. and studied around abolition, encourage folks to go out and to do that work. Abolition is a journey, not a destination. And I encourage everyone, this is the first step of that journey if you hadn't been on it already, and encourage folks to run down that path leading you towards abolition and try to learn as much as you can. And yes, I see the hands up. Thank you so much, Jasmine. I'm gonna go to Ray real quick, and then I'm gonna give us a quick how we could do our evaluation of this training and myself. But you got it, Ray.
Chris, you are a dream. I'm a nervous evaluator. Facilitator. So I was about to be like, evaluate. But just wanted to lift up for everyone on the call. This is the first training session of a series. So we started our journey with abolition. Want to invite everybody next Friday, same place, same time, to take the same journey about sheriffs, the power they hold, and where they could play in our power building strategy for an abolitionist future. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to Nell. And then last but not least, just want to bring back Chris, his plug earlier about the 24th and 26th of this month. We're not doing this for nothing. We are trying to end wealth-based detention here in Michigan, ending cash bail, and we will be doing a deep dive part 2. Like I said, March 24th through the 26th at Church of the Messiah. So again, hope to have you all there. If you have any questions, please reach out to Nail, who is on this call repping her colors. And Chris, I'm gonna pass it back to you.
Thank you for that, Ray. Thank you, everybody. In the chat, I'm going to drop just 3 simple questions. So this is going to help us just to evaluate, see how we can do this better. So in the chat, if folks could please share one thing that you enjoyed about this training, one thing that could have been better or improved upon in this training, and then one thing that you feel like was missing. Like you came in today like, oh, I hope I hear about this thing, and you didn't hear about that thing today, and let us know what that is, and so that we can figure out, so I can figure out, so Advancing Project can figure out how we continue to build on this training and make it more fruitful and valuable to the folks who go through it. And that is all I got. Once you drop those 3 things in the chat, encourage folks to have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your weekend. Rest, relaxation, joy is all a part of our journey to get towards an abolitionist future. And so encourage folks to go out and do that in abundance. Word, word. And I'm going to stick around for a few moments if folks have any questions, anything else. I'm happy to stick around to answer any more questions that folks might have. I love talking about abolition. So I'm happy to do that as well. But thanks. Go for it, Alexandria.
Yeah, so I'm curious. First, thank you for this training. Love that graphic. Gonna definitely check that out later. I did have a question about you guys' training. Do you guys do so this is 101. Do you do a different levels of it? And if so, I would be very curious to get that information.
Thank you for asking that question. This is the only level we have currently, but it is one of my goals to develop this out and see how we can have like a 202, 203 level. I don't like the academic type 101, 202 type of way of thinking about and talking about these concepts. But that's the framing that is stuck in my brain right now. But I do want to develop different levels, more advanced levels of the training, so that folks can come back for part 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s. you know, to infinity and beyond. Until we get there, until we all free.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank
Yes,
you.
indeed.
I just wanted to personally thank you, Chris. This was very, very informative for me personally. I input that I really, really love the breakout rooms, interacting with other people and meeting new people. Really, really love that. And also learning new things and how we can really, really imagine and dream and envision, you know, what society would look like and how we would, you know, how we would, what measures we will institute to make sure that it is healthy, you know, and it is better. Anything is going to be better than what's current, but you know, just that envisioning was just really, really refreshing. So thank you. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks, y'all. Yes, indeed.
Also, I'm
What?
gonna put my email address in here for anybody who are interested in joining for the share training. Again, we were bombed. Want to make sure that this does not occur next week. Is there going to be a different link, or how's that going to be? Because you never did send the link for Maria.